Ladies and gentlemen, buckle your seatbelts and maybe grab some popcorn because what just dropped on Malawi's political stage is the kind of drama you don't binge watch. It binge watches you. Brian Banda, the king of clean-cut, razor-sharp interviewing, just sat Kumlepo Kalua down for a Times exclusive, and let me tell you, this wasn't just an interview. This was a pressure cooker, a truth detector, and a reality check bundled into one fiery showdown. Questions flew, eyebrows raised, and Kumlepo, well, let's just say the man was tested on every political nerve he's ever claimed to have. Today, we're rolling through 10 explosive, jaw-dropping, eyebrow-lifting facts that came out of this interview, each one bigger than the last. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every second. Let's dive right in. The tension started before the actual grilling even began. When Brian Banda opened this interview, he set a tone so serious you could practically hear the studio lights sweating. Banda reminded Kumlepo that not everyone gets a platform in the same week, the same day, or even the same month, subtly calling out how rare and significant this opportunity was. It wasn't just a warm-up. It was a warning shot. Banda was telling him, "Sir, you're here for answers, not a reunion tour." Kumlepo, who is no stranger to political turbulence, tried to ease into the talk with calm nods and phrases like, "Yes, okay," and "It's unfortunate." But the calmness felt too much like the silence before a thunderstorm. Banda wasn't smiling. The man was already flipping through mental notes like a detective prepping for interrogation. He took Kumlepo straight into the conversation about democracy, reminding him that leadership isn't just about winning. It's about accepting change, embracing disagreement, and respecting maturity within a political landscape. Kalua, trying to steady the ship, insisted that Malawi's democratic values are being misunderstood. He spoke about how the 90s carried a different spirit, a spirit that today's politicians have twisted into something unrecognizable. He even criticized modern leaders for thinking democracy only works when they win. But Banda wasn't eating that humble pie. His silence wasn't agreement. It was strategy. And just when Kumlepo thought he had controlled the narrative, Brian Banda unlocked the first real landmine. Here's where Banda threw his first heavyweight punch: accountability. He leaned forward, metaphorically and literally, and asked the million kwacha question. "Sir, where are the names of the corrupt ministers you promised to expose?" This wasn't a soft jab. This was the question Malawians have been whispering for years. Back in the day, Kumlepo made international noise claiming he dropped the list of 7 corrupt ministers. But instead of a list, the public got confusion, political theaters, and an infamous reported abduction that had more plot holes than a bad Netflix thriller. Kalua defended himself, saying he's one of the pioneers of multi-party democracy. He painted himself as a hero of the cause, a person who helped bring freedom, transparency, and accountability to Malawi. He claimed he was misunderstood, even mistreated. But Banda didn't blink. The jaw-tight intensity on his face asks the question he didn't have to verbalize. If you're a hero, why are your stories starting to sound like mythology? Kalua continued explaining how democracy has been bent, abused, toyed with, and misrepresented by modern leaders. His message was powerful, but Banda's next move was even more powerful: a pause. And if you know journalism, the pause is deadlier than the question. But hold up, because if you thought that question shook the table, the next one flipped it over. Brian Banda then dove into the messy swamp of political hypocrisy. He asked what everyone else was afraid to ask: how do you claim moral authority while standing on a political record full of cracks? Kalua's reaction? A blend of discomfort and defensiveness. He insisted that accepting loss is part of democracy. He argued that he leads by example, stating that accepting outcomes you don't like defines your character. Noble idea, if only the internet didn't remember everything. Banda then walked him step by step through the inconsistencies in Malawi's multi-party evolution. Kalua defended himself again, saying today's leaders don't even understand democracy's core values. He claimed that politicians only accept democracy when they win and reject it when they lose.
pointing fingers at both MCP and DPP without naming names, but we all know the shoe fits multiple feet. Then he dove deep into the 90s history books, explaining how the original fight for multi-party democracy has been corrupted. Instead of progress, he said Malawians are walking backward. Instead of leaders protecting citizens, they're protecting their own pockets. His frustration was valid, but Bonda's silence was telling. He wasn't impressed. And that's when the interview took a jump from political theory to political horror story. Next, Bonda hit him with a curveball sharp enough to slice through the studio air. He brought up the iconic protest marches of the 1990s, marches come Lepo led with fiery passion. Bonda wanted to know, so where did that fire go? Why does today's activism look like expensive theater instead of real civil resistance? He tried explaining. He said protests today are abused. They're no longer about national interest. They're about political agendas. He complained that citizens no longer understand peaceful disagreement. Instead, they treat demonstrations like battlegrounds, where emotions outweigh principles. He reminisced about how protests used to be organized with dignity, respect, and purpose, not with destruction and chaos. He insisted that back then marches weren't confrontational, they were communicative. They were used to send messages to authorities, not threats. But today, he said protests have become staging grounds for violence and political manipulation. It was one of his strongest segments, until Bonda asked why he hasn't stood against this modern decline with the same fire he had in the 90s. And that stung. But hey, the tension didn't stop there, because the real bomb was still ticking, and Brian Banda was about to detonate it with one question Malawians haven't forgotten. Here it is, the one we all knew was coming. Bonda asked about the abduction. Yes, that one. The one that sent Malawi into a frenzy. The one where Kalua claimed he was kidnapped by unknown agents, but came back without a scratch, wearing fresh clothes, and looking like he just walked out of a salon appointment. Bonda's question was surgical. Sir, can you confidently tell Malawians that the abduction was real and not staged? Silence. Long silence. Kalua's answer? He said he was innocent, targeted and victimized. He insisted he was arrested simply because he asked tough questions. But Bonda's expression said, really? Like every Malawian watching, he wanted clarity, not poetry. Kalua explained that he was placed in terrible confinement, that his phone was taken and that he was chained like a criminal. Emotional stuff, except the timeline still doesn't add up, and Bonda knew it. But if you think that was the peak, buckle up. Bonda was just warming up because the conversation swerved into Malawi's economic meltdown next.
Now we're talking trillions, not millions, not billions, trillions. Kalua dropped a bomb claiming corruption under the current leadership has reached levels never seen before. He said funds vanished within months, not years. He slammed the government for burning through an 8.5 trillion kwacha budget in half a year, leaving Malawians staring at empty shelves and rising inflation. He even said the country is swimming in illegal cash circulation, with underground billionaires piling money while citizens can't afford basic groceries. According to him, Malawi is operating on broken economic legs, crippled by corruption, impunity, and a total abandonment of national priorities. His outrage was valid, his delivery passionate, but Bonda wasn't asking for passion, he was asking for proof. And Kalua danced around that part. But just when we thought the economic fireworks were the finale, the conversation took a spiritual detour. Kalua shifted gears and went theological, criticizing churches for abandoning prayer and turning faith into business. According to him, spiritual leaders are no longer teaching morality, they're selling miracle shortcuts to instant wealth. He said Malawians are chasing blessings instead of building productivity. Bonda's subtly pushed back, wondering why Kalua, as a veteran leader, hasn't confronted these systems earlier. Kalua, clearly emotional, claimed the country lacks real leadership, from politics to the church. He said production is zero, consumption is high, and foreign goods dominate the markets because Malawi isn't producing anything. According to him, the nation's moral compass and economic foundation are both fractured, and nobody's fixing it. Hook. And right when you think the conversation couldn't widen any further, we hit the political nerve center, MCP and DPP. Now, this was a heavyweight segment. Banda asked Kaluuya to compare the MCP and DPP administrations, and oh boy, did he go off. He slammed MCP for arrogance, impunity, tribalism, and abandoning the values they promised in their campaign. He said they turned democracy into a private business and ignored national needs, causing skyrocketing prices, shortages, and pain for citizens. But praise came when Banda shifted the conversation to former President Peter Muthathari. Kaluuya practically switched into storytelling mode, praising APM for stable fuel prices, affordable bread, disciplined cabinet selections, and leadership that respected dissent. He said people weren't voting for DPP in 2020, they were voting for APM, a product they trusted. And he made it clear, Malawi's current suffering is a direct result of abandoning that leadership model. But buckle up again, because next came the most emotional moment of the entire interview.
Kaluuya opened up about the death of Vice President Salos Chilima, and his tone shifted dramatically. He urged caution, maturity, and sensitivity. He said investigations must be respected, speculation avoided, and emotions handled carefully. Then he revealed something personal. His own arrest and mistreatment left him traumatized. He explained how he was confined in a tiny room, interrogated, threatened, and treated as if he were disposable. It was raw, intense, and unexpectedly vulnerable. Banda, for once, softened his voice. But the emotional calm didn't last long because the interview was heading into its final explosive direction, the future of Malawi and the leadership crisis. And now, the grand finale, the part that left the comment section spinning. In the final stretch, Kaluuya declared Malawi is suffering from a leadership vacuum. He said the country needs a president who's flexible, visionary, unbiased, forgiving, and skilled at maximizing national talent. He emphasized that talent has no region, no tribe, no border, and Malawi's failure is a failure to harness human genius. He blasted leaders who hire based on tribe. He criticized cabinet ministers who celebrate appointments like they just won a wedding raffle. He urged DPP to return to APM's founding principles: unity, inclusivity, and respect for all Malawians. He warned that tribalism is destroying the country, that educated people are pretending to know things they don't, that Malawi will not progress until leaders stop promoting friends and start promoting talent. His message was powerful, but Banda's
Kaluuya opened up about the death of Vice President Salos Chilima, and his tone shifted dramatically. He urged caution, maturity, and sensitivity. He said investigations must be respected, speculation avoided, and emotions handled carefully. Then he revealed something personal. His own arrest and mistreatment left him traumatized. He explained how he was confined in a tiny room, interrogated, threatened, and treated as if he were disposable. It was raw, intense, and unexpectedly vulnerable. Banda, for once, softened his voice. But the emotional calm didn't last long because the interview was heading into its final, explosive direction: the future of Malawi and the leadership crisis. And now, the grand finale, the part that left the comment section spinning. In the final stretch, Kaluuya declared Malawi is suffering from a leadership vacuum. He said the country needs a president who's flexible, visionary, unbiased, forgiving, and skilled at maximizing national talent. He emphasized that talent has no region, no tribe, no border, and Malawi's failure is a failure to harness human genius. He blasted leaders who hire based on tribe. He criticized cabinet ministers who celebrate appointments like they just won a wedding raffle. He urged DPP to return to APM's founding principles: unity, inclusivity, and respect for all Malawians. He warned that tribalism is destroying the country, that educated people are pretending to know things they don't, that Malawi will not progress until leaders stop promoting friends and start promoting talent. His message was powerful,
But Bonda's finishing blow was even more powerful. So who is this leader you're describing? Who is the one who can unite the country? Kahlua paused, and the interview ended with the whole nation asking the same question. If you loved this breakdown, hit that like button like it owes you money, smash that subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which fact slapped the hardest. At Global Pulse News, we don't just report the news, we break it open, analyze the pieces, and hand you the truth with style. Stay locked in, stay informed, and stay loud.